Alrighty, good afternoon. I'm gonna cheat and see if my clock agrees. Yes, it is 3:34 and we're kicking off our curriculum committee meeting on September 9th, 2025. And this is being live streamed on MSAD11. We'll do introductions. Miss Megan.
Megan Carlson.
Linda Caputo.
And Alyssa Tracy. Thank you. Angela Hardy, take it away.
Okay, we have a lot on our agenda today. The first meeting of the school year.
Great.
All right, the first one is for our ESEA federal title funding. We had some changes over the summer, so I want to make sure we're up to date, being as transparent as possible. So your first chart is underneath your agenda item. So since we last met, we received Title I funding and Title V funding. Then in August, we received notification that we would receive Title II and Title IV funding.
Yay.
We had a 2-week turnaround to complete our application and submit it. And then it was actually approved within 72 hours, which is
Wow.
unusual.
Yeah.
So we did receive more in Title I this year than we have in the past by $23,619.64. However, our salaries for ed techs and benefits, I anticipate are going up. I don't know if they completed negotiations.
Not yet.
Okay, they're still in negotiations. I anticipate the salaries and benefits will go up, so it's it will continue to cover salaries and benefits. We're going to talk how we use all the other titles, but we got actually $12,206.31 more in Title II, which was unexpected. Title IV, we received $2,409.82 more. And Title V, we received $2,994.52 less. So the net gain is $35,241.25. So just to be clear, you approved all uses of Title I, and just to outline, we use for LER, Riverview, and Pittston, it's all salaries and benefits for either ed tech or literacy specialist staff, and family engagement funds. So we are required to set aside a certain percentage of all of our Title I funds for something called family engagement. And that's then dispersed per building, and it's usually used for like literacy nights, math nights, end of year breakfast celebrations, not the food part. We pay for that locally because the federal government doesn't pay for food.
Okay.
Sometimes an author study or an author visit or a mathematician's visit, and we are going to try to do that this year, and then take home summer work and activities for kids. And then we use local funds to cover Helen Thompson because they do not qualify for Title I based on their rates. But by law, we have to have comparable services. So we have a comparable model, locally funded, well, partially locally funded. The one literacy specialist is locally funded. The Ed Tech 3 is actually funded through Title V. And then family engagement funds are also comparable within range. Title II funds, we were not expecting these this year. So what I did was maintain the same profile that you approved last year and the state approved, but for slightly different as needed projects based on our needs assessment. So we always use Title II for a class size reduction teacher. We had actually in the budget a plan for a class size reduction teacher. And then we were trying to, after the budget passed, learn that we weren't getting Title II. So we were coming up with a way to cover that position. And then we found out we were getting Title II, so then we didn't have to stress about covering it through the local budget. So this year that is under grade 3 at Riverview. We make a decision on class size reduction based on obviously the size of the cohort in a particular building, and couple that with our academic achievement data. And where there's opportunity for for growth, if we reduce the class size, that's where we try to have the teacher. So it really, year over year, depends on what the data is telling us. And this year it's Riverview, so they have 4 grade 3 teachers this year instead of 3. And their class sizes are between 15 and 16.
And grade 3 was where they really struggled in math, correct?
Yes, actually in both in that building, but especially math. Yes. Third grade 3 across the district.
Right.
Yeah, but the numbers in grade 3 and the other buildings are pretty decent. It would have been a lot higher in this building, so we added the 4th teacher. But yes, you're right, it is data aligned. And then what you'll see is our coaches, I don't put their professional development money in our local budget. I usually use Title II so that it doesn't draw down on the local budget, and we have 4. But new rules in Title II state that all monies have to be dispersed by building. So I figure out where they're assigned 50% of the time or more, and I put their professional development line in there. And so that's why you see that showing up, travel. And then we haven't had science or social studies PD in a really long time in the elementary buildings. And we're trying to redo their curriculum to be more interdisciplinary based so that when we're teaching science and social studies, it's very targeted and engaging, because it's such a hard thing to fit into the schedule, and we want to, and sometimes it's the thing kids really love the most, right? And it's foundational knowledge, core knowledge. And so HCCA, Healthy Communities of the Capital Area, paid for 3 of our staff this summer who wanted to. They opted in to go to Project Growing Up Wild and Project Wild training. And it was a big hit. And there are very clear correlations to our standards and our literacy that we can write really nice curriculum with. And so I would like to try to scale that up. The current science programming we're using is great, except for it's super time consuming. And I don't, and so kids are getting shortchanged. They're not fitting it in. And so I want to make sure we do a critical review of science and social studies this year with that interdisciplinary lens, which we'll talk about soon. And also be thinking about what's the professional learning experience that we'd want staff to have to be able to effectively implement it. So this is if there's agreement and connection to interdisciplinary, there'd be space in the budget for it through Title II. And if not, we can reapply to position the funds for something different. And then there's a conference that's done annually that we've never gone to. It's called the School Redesign and Action Conference. And given the work we've been doing on redesigning our system around instructional leadership and our strategic plan, it's a beautiful conference because it's schools, teachers, staff sharing what they've done to have an impact on student learning or student engagement, student attendance, and it's all at the secondary level. So it's all middle schools and high schools in New England that participate, and the presentations are vetted, means that they have to apply and be judged before they can be accepted. So they're really high quality and they're all actionable. Because you leave with tools and resources. And I think given the commitment our staff has been making the last few years to really think about redesigning for impact of learning and towards those goals we have in our strategic plan, I think, and we don't do a lot of group attendance at conferences because of the money.
Right.
I really wanted to try to position some of our staff at the middle school and high school to be able to attend that conference.
Where is it?
It changes each year. Last year it was in Norwood, Massachusetts, outside of Boston. It's a little more reasonably priced there. That's why they host it there. And sometimes it's in Rhode Island. So I have to check and find out where it would be this year. It could even be North. It could, maybe
Providence.
it would be great if it was in New Hampshire, but
Yeah.
I don't know that they've identified it yet, but I scanned their rates year over year to figure out like what would it cost us, and could this grant, since we were not expecting it,
Right.
could it be an opportunity to get some really neat ideas about ways to like build on what we're doing, or or, just learn from others who are really doing it outside of our own little bubble.
My experience with this kind of thing is even when 4 staff members go to dinner the night of the conference, there's a lot of valuable sharing that goes on
Right.
that they don't have time to do in the school building. So
Right.
in addition to what you get
Mhm.
from the presenters, allowing your staff time to just be together
Yeah, true.
casually and share is
Yeah, and
valuable.
we're pretty frugal with things like that, so I just thought if we could embed the lodging and the registration, it's only one night, it's not many nights, and it's drivable, that I think it could be really impactful for people who have been working really hard to achieve something.
Right.
And then what I did put in here was as you know, because of the instructional leadership model at Riverview, we approved their 3rd-year plan instead of their 1st-year plan because it was so well developed. So that for them to have 2 multi-classroom leaders, we need to pivot one of our ed techs from a 2 to a 3 or a 1 to a 3, I can't remember, I have it written down. And we realized that after the budget closed. So I wanted for this year to use Title II funds, moving them into Title V funds, where that's called flexible funding, and it's where you can use Title V funds as long as it follows rules of any one of the other titles. And by doing that, it actually follows Title I rules in Title V by paying for part-time of an ed tech to not draw down on our local budget, to move someone into a position to be able to support. They're really supporting small group instruction, but inside the classroom in a way different than they can right now because of their status. I'm not sure if I'm being real clear about that, but it's not something we can do this year because we didn't plan for it. But we could plan for it. And I think this is more than we need, but because negotiations aren't done on ed techs.
Yes.
And then if we have extra, we can use it and carry over for next year for something else. We can rewrite the grant and get approval from everyone. And then the only other thing is the high school math department. They've been making a lot of changes on their flexible pathways for students. So now we're looking at ways to differentiate and allow for small group instruction across the entire high school community. But specifically math feels like they need some content experts who have done this. And we have someone who's a retired high school teacher who has a really, really good reputation and works with Maine Math and Science Alliance now. And we'll meet the staff where they're at and help them set goals and practices on ways that they could step into that from a math perspective. And math is also the area we really need to start seeing grow at the high school level. They're certainly working hard, but we've been making a lot of changes and we'd like to see that happen a little more. And so there's some money set aside for that. That's Title II. Questions about that? And then Title V is that money from Title II into V for that part-time ed tech, and then the typical the math interventionist at Helen Thompson, because we can't use Title I money for that, so we use Title V. And local money for the literacy side. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So most of it you already knew.
Right.
The little bit that was different was Title II, and I tried to frame it like last year, we did PD around literacy. And this year we're doing PD around interdisciplinary literacy. So I tried to keep it parallel. What last year was secondary, this year would be elementary, so that there's balance and it wasn't like wildly different.
Right.
But we have funding, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And it can cover this stuff. We're gonna wait and see, what happens next, but we have this year's funding.
Yep, that's good.
Okay. The next one is just informational, professional learning calendar. This is our most recent draft of how we spend our time, and I'll orient you to it. It's a date. You can see the tabs, elementary, secondary, and ed tech. So like sometimes it's all of them and sometimes you'll see it's certain roles. And then on the right, it talks about how does this align to our priorities and how does it align to our strategic plan? So everything we're doing connects to the strategic plan and or priorities. And priorities are specifically things like differentiated, targeted, explicit, small group instruction informed by data. Well, that's part of having a greater impact on our learning, which will get to our metrics, which is our strategic plan. Classroom environment and routines, and student safety, student and staff safety. Those are mostly the show up as behavior and regulation or instructional leadership. So instructional leadership ties to educator sustainability. Being able to better support students as they're dysregulated also leads to educator sustainability, right?
Yeah.
So instructional leadership is educator sustainability and strategic plan goals, academic goals. Behavior management on the student side is student mental health. So we try to make sure it's focused, and you'll see there's a lot this year on de-escalation strategies, student wellness, emotional regulation stuff so that they can be prepared to be working with others in their school setting. Dr. Green's lenses of engagement, which basically is like a problem-solving technique with the student to help them develop plans to be able to tackle things that are challenging for them. If they get frustrated by something. So it's with and not to a student. And then you'll see things in here like our new teacher evaluation system. How do we do that? How do we do small group instruction? Making sure there's time set aside to work on our annual action plan and making sure we're following through with our action steps that they co-designed in every building. And then there'll be learning themes this year launching in October. These are just the draft ones. I'll be working on this with the staff in the next couple weeks. And this way it's differentiated, right? Not all staff need all the same thing. So they pick from a theme that makes the most sense for them based on where they're at and their personal and professional goals. And then they stick with that for the year during some of our early release and workshop time.
While you're talking about everybody needing different things, the mandatory trainings, are those things that we kind of keep track of also, or is it up to the person to keep track of?
Both. So there's a whole suite of mandatory training,
Yeah.
bloodborne pathogens, right?
Sure.
And do
Or
they watch a video or do you, yeah,
a lot of them are video, not all of them. Suicide prevention is, there's a video, but mostly in person. And child sexual abuse prevention is in person. And mandatory reporter is both. And then the rest are sort of video based, but there's usually like a little quiz and they have to
Yeah.
print off a certificate upon completion, and then they have to share it with the principal, and then the principal keeps track of it on a spreadsheet and so it's like the person's responsible, but also the
Yeah.
administrator.
Yep.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and then there's a little bit of time built in for district-wide grade level team meetings, when that can work. But we're trying to keep it tight around instructional leadership, student behavior supports, and impact on learning. Old one.
It's all good.
Thank you.
This one's good and the others are. I just noticed it.
Any questions on the PD plan? I tried to be really purposeful. We did actually, I had a PD committee this past year again. We did
nice.
that around COVID time, and there was a lot of feedback about professional development, and so I convened, ended up being a lot of 16 people from all roles and all buildings,
Wow.
and they met 4 times last spring with
Wow.
me. And they helped design this.
Nice.
Yep, and then I just had to follow through over the summer.
Nice.
Okay.
It is assessment time
already.
already. So in this packet is the letter that will be going out to families. I intended for it to go out yesterday and I lost track of time, so it's going out tonight or tomorrow morning. And it's just the annual letter that says it's time for us to check on what your student knows. And it tries to clarify what that is, in what grade levels, I like to send this out electronically rather than like printing it off because there are links here. And it brings you to lots of information on our website about the tests, about the windows, about why testing, all kinds of the whole FAQ page. It brings you to our district data. So you can find a synopsis of our district data and then you can go right to the state dashboard and read anything you want to know. So I try to make that easy for families to get to by having the link in here. And then at the school level, they already have, I've seen it in some of their monthly newsletters. They're up, you know, it's time, we're gonna start iReady math testing, or we're gonna start NUIA testing. So this is here, and it goes out annually. On top of it, this is the confusing part. Annually, we have results that we want to share with families about how their students did. The NUIA results, so you have fall, winter sometimes, and then spring. And the window closes such that we could potentially have a family report in June to send home. But the state likes to double check all their data sets, which makes sense. So the family report was available over the summer, but there's not an easy way to share that with families right now electronically. So I'm printing all of the individual students' family reports now to disperse. And they just released the science test was taken in the spring, like April. And I this week just got the test scores and the reports. So I'm gonna send them all home at the same time. So science is grade 5, 8, and the 3rd year in high school last spring. So 6th graders, 9th graders, and seniors should be getting the family report for science. And we'll do a little review on all of our fall assessment data, and then I'll go in October or November, and I'll go back and show you science's spring scores, because I have them now, so.
And is this the only way the students will see their scores and what's sent home to their parents?
Yeah. They see, for NUIA, they see it immediately on the screen.
Yeah, they know their numbers.
And a lot of them goal set and know sort of what that means. But we can't send out a report until we like officially get it through the portal. So, and they really need to be color copied. So I have to do it here. So I've gotten all the science ones printed and ready, but now I need to do all the NUIA ones for the whole district. And then what happens is we put a black and white copy because we know what it looks like in color, but families don't necessarily. And we make a black and white copy to go into every student's cumulative folder. So I'm getting organized. Ideally, I'd love for it to go home when report cards go home, but I don't think that's gonna happen. And I feel like parent-teacher conferences are gonna be too late because that's like late October and we already have this information. But we'll talk about it again with administrators, and it will be going out early fall. The part that's confusing is this data is from last year.
Right.
And they're just about ready to start the next NUIA assessments. So if you're not looking closely, you're gonna get a family report and it could look like the test you just took, but it's really from last year's testing results. So that's the trick about it.
Yeah.
But it's a mandate to send them out. I would want it as a parent, so I want to send them out. It's just the timing is kind of funny.
It's funny you say that because I do like my drawers of things every year, you know, and when I was going through all the report cards and progress reports, I literally just did keep the last, report card and all the assessment data. Just because then I was like, oh, let me put one child next to the other and see how that went. And I was like, that's important information just to have rather than, an SAT score or just a report card. So I just went through and did all that. So I appreciate those. Those are helpful.
And I did pull sample family letters, like from science. I took the child's name off. And I will have that for you so that when you see what a sample NUIA letter, you'll get one.
Yeah.
A sample NUIA letter and a sample science letter, just so you have an idea of what's going home. Because I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Data people like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Are you a data person?
Yeah, and then I'll
Yeah.
also, of course, show you our district summary and grade span summary and all that stuff. I just literally yesterday got all that stuff. It was probably out this week, but I only noticed yesterday, so.
Very good.
Okay, curriculum cycles.
Mm.
So this was shared with you last October. And I just wanted to bring it back to the forefront because it's pretty much on track, but I wanted to share one change that I want to make. This is the ideal, right? The ideal is we would be in a 3-year cycle when working through curriculum reviews. And the first year, we would bring a committee together, audit the system, figure out where we're at, make a plan. And then in the second year, we'd be learning and refining it, having some professional learning to support future implementation, have some feedback, and maybe try a few things out from the plan. And then the third year, have it be fully implemented for a few years and then come back to the table. Some things take longer and some things take less long. So that's why I consider this like the ideal plan. So in last school year, we really tried to focus on high school math, and we did. We really got clarity around our essential standards. We remapped them against courses to make sure that because we looked at our data and tried to understand like why are we struggling in certain areas, and in some cases it was because our mapping and timeline was off a little bit compared to current expectations, like testing expectations or student readiness. And we also made sure there was a really nice sync from middle school to high school. So that's all been updated. And now what we're doing is sort of looking at the instructional side and the instructional resource side, and then we'll bring it all to the table. So where we are in year 2, in the like, what do we need for professional learning? And you saw in the professional learning plan, there's some funds set aside for specifically high school math. And how can we refine some of our instructional practices and some of our instructional resources to make sure that staff have what they need to be successful with students, right? And that student experience is strong based on research and best practices. So we're right on track with math, and then we'll be bringing that more complete package to the table for you to review later this year for a vote of confidence, hopefully, and then we'll be fully implementing. Handwriting and writing, we did a lot of work last year. And rewrote all of the writing rubrics for K-5, updating them to our current resources and the current state standards. We trialed it through double-blind scoring of student writing samples. We did not record the results of those samples in a district database on purpose because we were using it as a way to calibrate and tweak the rubrics based on our understanding and shore up some of our scope and sequence. We learned a lot through that process. So this year that's getting formalized more, and then we'll bring that to the table for you to review and have our full implementation next year, as it says on this chart.
Is that kind of double-blind writing and scoring done in middle school too?
It's going to be. So the middle school ELA, we have a lot that is feeling very secure. I'm ready to show you all of that except for writing. We've even done a scope and sequence on grammar, and the part we're at in grammar is on the instructional resource. You supported us using patterns of power, but we're trying to weave it in a little tighter. We need a writing rubric in middle school. And so there's been a team working on that for like 15 months because it's such a huge task.
Did you ask around for other rubrics? That
Oh,
others-
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
but we have a real clear idea. We wanted to sync all the way from elementary up through, and we have some ideas based on we looked at student writing to figure out like what are we missing. And we have a framework we're using on the instructional side, so we need to then layer in. We want the rubric to actually be cross-disciplinary. Because that's where the impact is for students when they have similar common messages and shared expectations
language.
and language. So that's what we're shoring up now, and then we'll be bringing that to the table. Math, I think is done. I need to get that here. Social studies, 6 through 12. High school is ready. Middle school, we cleaned up. Sixth grade a bit, has a little more to do, and eighth grade last spring, and so we have 2 more units in eighth grade to clean up before we can bring that to you. And clean up, I just mean like refine, refresh, compare to the standards, double check some of our instructional resources we had to retire
Oh,
and
yeah.
shift. And then this year, we're gonna be in the plan stage for 6-12 science, I think, for 2 years. I don't think we're gonna be ready in 1 year to really have what we want. There's a lot of work that we wanna do around the next gen standards in science. And I really want the staff to be on board, not have this done to them, but done with them. And they have some pretty neat ideas starting to percolate, so I'd like to afford them the time to do it well and not feel hurried. There's some training that some staff went to on like data science and ecology this summer that was really impactful to them. I want to give them time to help, share that with their colleagues and see how that might implicate our sequence of learning. And health, I think we should actually already be down to learn and refine. And then the one thing I want to modify on this is what I'd like to actually put, if you see under 23 to 25, there was a plan for K-5 Interdisciplinary Studies Committee. We did that, but we paused it this past year because we had so much going on with student regulation and dysregulation that I just couldn't ask the staff to do anything else in another meeting. So I paused it, and I'd like to actually reconvene it for this year. We have a lot of interest. And then move through the cycle. So it would basically shift the cycle by 1 year.
Last year, maybe in the October meeting, the principals came in and told us what it was like.
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking. Are they gonna report again? I'd like to think they might, and then we might have some better news. Or it could be one person reporting for everybody. It doesn't,
Right.
but just to compare last year to this year.
I will put the request in and talk with Katie
Don't make it a
about
lot of work for them. I
Right,
want
no,
just
no.
Anecdotal.
Just
We
sharing
might
what
wanna
they-
push it to November instead of
Okay.
October, only because we have 3 new principals.
Yes.
And they're probably still getting their feet under them,
That's
although I've
fine.
been hearing some really nice things, so. But I'll put the request in and see where we land.
I just
on
like
that.
to think that it's better.
I've been walking through the schools, I feel in a lot of places it is,
Good.
but, well, that's, I'm not the.
But it's really early. We could still be in the honeymoon back to school.
Exactly, we're only in the beginning of the second week of school.
Right.
So if you're okay with that, I will start preparing materials to slowly start bringing to you this winter and spring, and then I'd like to push that interdisciplinary 1 year out, so.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay, I'm still working on getting to the website.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't stress yourself. If it's
last-
part of our meeting minutes, I mean, people can find it if they need. to.
I really wanted on that curriculum site, but
Yeah.
we had a lot of changes last year and I
Right.
just didn't prioritize it enough, but I will.
Yep.
Cause I know how important it is. Okay, last one. Right? Look
Yeah.
at us cranking right
I
along.
know.
Okay, this is high school report cards. So the first 2 are just informational. There's our policy. It's about policy IKAB, the report card progress reports, and policy IKA, mastery and grading policy. And that's just to ground you, to remind you, you have policies on grading and reporting. We're following them. The grading scale is embedded in your policy, that we require a dual reporting system. So in this system, we require recognition of standards and we require a traditional system. So we have both in this system. So it's complicated.
Yeah.
So if you you have between an 85 and 100, does that mean you automatically have a 4? And if it does, is that not redundant?
So this scale was adopted in
I know, I was just looking at the last page, 22.
2014 was the scale, because I came in
Oh.
2018 and it was adopted before me. So we did this because at the elementary level on the report cards, you usually see proficiency categories.
Okay,
But in Power School, when entering data, teachers need more information in order to enter the data so that turns into a proper proficiency scale for families to see. So there has to be ranges, and depending on if a teacher organizes their grades by 100-point scale or a 4-point scale, it has to have a conversion
so if Phyllis and
factor.
I both taught 5th grade, I might enter by percentages and she might enter 3.5?
Yeah. So we don't have a grading manual in this district yet. So we use the grading policy for now, and we use the report card tool to help us get there. At the elementary level, we're actually probably more calibrated because of the report card process that we went through 3 years ago. Because we also made, on top of the report card, which is very standards-based report card, it has reporting categories. And from there, we've aligned every single standard that fits under the category, and then we've color coded those. And so anyway, when teachers are like, when I'm teaching this, where does it fall? It's very, very clear behind the scenes. And then we use a lot of student work to help us understand without student names, of course, to help us see, are we responding in similar ways to what this means? Or we have calculations that we've all agreed to. So that is pretty tight. If you see, there's a different scale for the secondary level. So we don't actually really use.
I was gonna say,
it just says
I've never seen that
because
before.
it just says E and it says a big scale. But it's a 100-point scale. And we can have more than 100 points because we have weighted grades at the
Yes.
high school.
Right.
And then why this matters is because of the way the report card is going to show up.
Yeah.
So so middle school's already done. They went through a revision 2 years ago. And now we went through high school and we realized there's some more work to do. So we wanted to put in, we've decided to phase the report card in across 1 more year in 3 parts. The report card for families and students will not change this year from fall to spring, just to be clear. But the orientation of the report card is going to change, and I have a Google Doc version of it. The Power School version's almost ready. And so that's what we're releasing to staff now. The way that each department represented standards was slightly different over time. So like math had topics and a lot of them, and English had the 5 strands. Reading, listening, writing, speaking, listening, reading, yeah.
Language.
Yes, language. Thank you.
Yep.
And so those are just 2 examples. And so what we were trying to do as a committee is come up with a framework that was consistent across departments without it being too fine-grained. Like the elementary report card is much more fine-grained. It really talks about phonics, and then it talks about writing, and then it talks about handwriting, and then it talks and we're looking for a little broader scale at the high
Just
school.
remember, an elementary school teacher has at most maybe 25 report cards to do. And a high school teacher may have 90.
Right.
So
exactly.
to expect a high school teacher to mark 10 categories for 90 students, to me is
Yeah.
asking too much.
Yeah.
So we shifted, and there's potential opportunity for us to continue to refine that as we play around with it this year. It's not going to impact a child. Like when I say play around with it, I'm not impacting anyone's
Yeah, the
GPA.
data,
Okay,
yeah,
I want to be really clear about that, and this
Right.
is why.
yeah.
So there'll be priority standards in the content areas, and they will be, grades will be tied to two things mostly. Either just the standards, like the English department does, or categories and standards. So some people like to set it up as tests, quizzes, homework, whatever. And then they tag both the standard and the category. Okay, so you get a standards report and you get an overall grade. But how you organize that right now is a little bit up to teacher discretion at the moment. So that's why sometimes when parents log into PowerSchool, it looks a little different per
It's different,
content area.
Yeah,
The content areas tend to be similar, but across content areas, they're not always similar. And that's okay, that can both happen this year. But here's what's changed. So if you're in Algebra 1, you're going to get a grade, let's say an 86, something between the 0 to 100 point scale, unless it's a weighted, but that's not a weighted class. So let's say a child gets an 86. Then it's gonna say like reporting strands, and then there's things like algebraic reasoning, reasoning with numbers, statistical reasoning, or geometric reasoning. Those are strands or kind of the domains of the math world. If you're in algebra, your teacher may have taught using algebraic reasoning and reasoning with numbers. But maybe and statistical reasoning, but maybe like data and statistics, but maybe they didn't have geometry standards in their Algebra 1 class. Makes sense, right? So that's gonna gray out because there's no score. However, students did on their assignments that were tagged to those standards, reporting strands. Let's say algebraic reasoning landed at an 82. On the scale, that, 82. Yeah, that converts to a meets. So we're like, on that standard, the student is meeting. But let's say the assignments that were related to reasoning with numbers, the student actually scored a 93. So that's gonna show up as an E based on the scoring scale. If it's statistical reasoning and they did less well and maybe they only got a 68, that's like an area of growth for them. It's gonna show up as a partially meets on the thing. None of that impacts their GPA. Their GPA is still related to the 86. But what it does is clarify what are your strengths and what are your areas of opportunity for growth in the standard when you look at that grade under standards. Right? Like, oh, you're stronger in reasoning with numbers and algebraic reasoning than you are with statistical reasoning. But it's not entirely important that we know if that means 82, 71 or whatever. Does that make sense?
so what you were just saying, to put it all together, like Linda was saying, it's not like they're doing anything additional, they're just interpreting it to the scale now.
So the teacher can still put in all their numbers 0 to 100 so
Right.
that they can get their 86.
Got it, yeah,
But the computer system, as they tag those assignments to a standard,
got it,
will say, oh, that's an 86, and it's gonna say, oh, because the computer system knows the scale, it's gonna convert it to one of the proficiency
Yeah.
letters.
okay, yep.
So can you tell me what behaviors that support learning? Is that
So
like homework
that's-
assignments and?
Yeah, so let's talk
Tardiness
about that.
and-
That's new and we're not fully implementing it right now. So if people choose not to use it, it's just gonna be gray right now. But it is implemented in K-8. So we have but it didn't seem fair. We didn't have enough time to fully work with staff. So it's in the system. And it says, we'll introduce the concept of behaviors that support learning in October. And I gave them what that means. If a staff member wants to try it out this year, they can. It's going to be like 5% or it's like work habits. 5 or 10% of a student's grade.
Yeah.
It's not enough to like completely flip a student's grade, right? But it can be graded so that it's clear if their work habits are stronger or less strong.
And this is really controversial, I think,
Well, it
because there are
depends.
students who are really talented and they don't have to do their homework and they don't have to keep a binder
And they get the
and
grades.
they ace
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And then there are the kids who are detail oriented and everything, you know, they do their homework and they still don't pass a test and.
So that's why it's only a minimal percentage of their total grade. It has a little bit of weight, but not really enough. But it gives an indicator like you are working really, really hard. Even if your grade doesn't reflect it, you're gonna get it, maybe you get an E and exceeds in that category under the
Yeah.
standards.
Mhm.
And it's this percent of your total grade. And if you're not working hard and your grade is still strong, you'll have a notation there that says, that notation doesn't go on the transcript. It only goes on the report card,
That makes
right?
sense.
What goes on the transcript is the overall grade. And that's what goes to colleges and businesses and stuff. So it's really a communication tool. If you think of a
Yeah,
report
I
card
think
as
it's
a
a great
communication tool.
communication, because if your child comes home with a grade that you think they should do better, but he's getting an E, to me, that's a whole different story than if your child comes home with a grade you don't think
That
they
was-
should be getting and they have a
Yeah,
does not meet.
that was gonna be my next
Yeah, it gives
question
you
was,
some,
are
like-
we gonna hear from a lot of parents who are like, my child should have gotten an A specifically, or can they, where are people gonna be like, I mean, exceeds with distinction is very nice. You know, are people
I've
gonna be
never
like,
seen that used.
maybe they're right?
I think because we've ended up calling it just E.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
really.
So this is we still need to work through with the high school. This is what the draft language is for behaviors that support learning. Now, we have behaviors that support learning that are very clearly outlined on the report card in K-5. Then we have the same thing, but at a different developmental level for 6 to 8. And they record grades they post them every 2 weeks. I think every week this year. So it's a routine, like it's called an assignment so that you can see sort of how they're doing. So there's data in there to convert it at the report card time. And they have a method for monitoring it.
I think to some parents, it's not called work habits anymore.
Yeah, it's-
Behaviors that support
yeah.
learning is almost a more important grade than the.
For some parents, it is. And it is essentially work habits, and it's broken into 3 categories. The language is a little different at the high school than the middle school, but it's preparation for learning. To arrive to class on time, to complete assignments on time, to obtain and complete makeup work in a timely manner. The other section is productive learner. Are you engaged in classroom activities? Do you actively listen? To contribute to classroom discussions? Know how and when to ask for help and follow through with next steps? Do you commit to reflection and revision and demonstrate perseverance through challenges? And then the last one is citizenship. Demonstrate respect for others, follow rules, teacher instructions, and classroom procedures, share responsibility during collaborative tasks, provide constructive feedback and support to other students. So those are work habits. And how that gets organized, it will become 1 grade. And it's a proficiency scale. And again, it's like it's a small percentage on your overall grade. So it's intended to act as a communication tool, mostly. There's a little bit of teeth in it, right? Around the numerical grade that results. And teachers from the beginning of time have always had some sort of participation grade in their grade book that does impact the overall grade. So it's not a new practice, it's just a much more defined practice. What does that really actually look like?
And you only get 1.
And sometimes participation grades used to be like 25% of your classroom
Right,
grade, right? Yeah, you only get 1, but
Okay.
teachers can create multiple assignments and have them be each
Different
section.
one,
And then
yeah.
that can calculate together to create 1 grade.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's what that is. And then phase 2 is November to March, where we're gonna there's some steps we have to do with the school counseling office. And then phase 3 is November to May, where we work with a team from the high school on starting to define a grading manual, training modules, and orientation, so that we can fully implement next year. right now, it'll just be the look and feel and a light touch and then full implementation next year. And then the last page is the Google Doc version of what this, well, plus a little tape and scissors. Cause I couldn't figure out how to get one of these squares in the Google Doc version. But on this, you'll see that we now have a statement of purpose for our report card, which is the same K to 12 now, about like, it's a communication tool. We're going to have progress towards graduation, community
That'd be
service
awesome.
hours. Hopefully
Yes.
that Terry's been working her magic on trying to make that come alive. Attendance always has been on there, but now we're adding a category that the middle school has, which is impact on loss of learning. So your percent of absence. So out of the number of school days you're there and and the number you're absent, that impacts your percent. That's like chronic absenteeism.
And 10
stuff.
days is considered truant?
10%.
10%.
So
Which is
10%
like
of your
17
attendance.
days
Or
or
18
something.
days.
Yeah, 17 and a half days across the year, but like if you're in school 60 days of school
And you're out.
and you're out 6 of them, you hit that mark.
Yep.
And then the courses, your rate of attendance and their grades. It's gonna look slightly different because of the way it gets oriented on a page with Power School, but it's similar to this. But what's important is we'll have the key on there, right? What is the performance expectation? What does it mean to be EM, PM, and does not meet? And then what does that mean for the numerical grades? And then it'll look nicer, but the behavior support learning, what does that mean? And it will have the definition right there. And then it will have what you need on a report card always is each of the courses, the teacher that teaches that course, the numerical grade for the course per term, and then the reporting strands with the proficiency scales per standard. And then comments, that's the part I think Terry's looking at where the comments are gonna fit, if they're gonna fit under each or
Do you have a
separately.
comment sheet with a number, so you just type in a number, or do you actually type in the word?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Both, okay. Because I know I would always say, oh, these, if you don't know what else to say, put in 23 and 35.
Oh, like for the comment line.
And then I would put that in and then the computer would type it
You
out.
can tell, because in high school, I'm speaking from reference, right? Some of them you can tell write themselves, and
Right.
some you can tell it's just that, or some are just blank. It's fun to find in Power School.
Yeah,
And I have a silly question, because I always think of this. So Power School starts when they're in middle school, or should they have it in elementary school?
We have, as soon as a child enrolls in the system, they are logged into Power School. But we don't have the public reporting, the Power Grade turned on for parents in the elementary school.
Got it.
Maybe in grade 4 or 5, do we turn it on in 4 or 5?
Actually, it's all there, we just don't advertise that a parent goes in.
yeah, you
And
can
we don't require
just,
a teacher to enter grades to a
you
certain.
can see
That
your
makes
student,
sense.
you can see your student, but you can't like see their stuff.
Some teachers do, but.
Yeah,
most
But
don't.
once they get older, you can see historically what is in there.
We're
Got it.
We're pretty adamant in
Yep.
middle school and up that it has
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be fully transparent.
Yep.
In elementary school, they have different methods a lot of times for communicating.
It's pretty
that.
accurate from what I've seen. I mean, I get updates from it. That's
Mhm.
great. That's cool. I think
Yeah.
that's kind of neat. We do that for so long and then we like kind of lose that. So that'd be kind of neat to see. I mean, it's a lot of information, but as long as it's not going to impact the teachers, like you said, some of them are already doing it and aligning it and figured out their way to cover it. That's
I especially like it. It says credit earns and basic how many you need for graduation. So
Yes.
the parent can't say, oh, I didn't know they were behind.
Well, we just
on it."
asked for ours, so we got a report and that was very useful, but I was like, oh, I didn't have that. Like I could go to the policy, obviously, and do the thingy, just figure it
Terry's
out.
doing some cool stuff that we're not ready to release yet.
Sweet.
But we're trying, it came out of the report card committee to, because, right, you have these reports and for a long time, I think they were done by hand and now I think
Right.
there's a few other methods, but what we're trying to do is sync it into Power School so that you can get one of those, where are you at in your credit process, full report
Yep,
through Power School.
That's cool.
And it will differentiate what's required and what's elected. And so, because one issue about this is that you could say, okay, you need like, what do we say, 22
I
credits
think so.
for graduation. And then let's say it says that you have 18 complete, oh, I only need 4. But then you actually look at the details
Right.
and you're like, oh, I'm actually missing my art credit. And even if I
Yeah.
get 22 credits and I don't have the art credit, then I can't graduate, right? So that kind of thing is the
Yeah, that's helpful.
details we'll have to, that's sort of what we're playing around with.
You can kind of like maybe
And then your
mess
kid
around with
says, how
stuff.
do you know?
Which ones you need to take and which ones
Yeah,
you don't need to
exactly. I
take.
think it would be to have that level. It would be really helpful to advisors, to parents, to students. I think it, and it could possibly streamline some of the work that the school counseling office has to do so that it might be less burdensome for them. They have a lot of students they support,
Mhm.
and it's a lot of detail.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's where we're at on that, and we'll be looking at the transcript in the school profile too, but again, that will not impact anyone's GPA at
Right.
all.
It's just the formatting
It's just
and stuff.
formatting stuff.
Yeah. All right.
Does that help? I mean, it's a lot, I just threw a lot at you, but
That's
usually I have to
perfect.
give you an update of all my things that we're
Good
working
update.
towards.
Yeah,
Good
very good.
update.
All right.
Yeah.
4:31.
Okay. look at
Meeting
us.
adjourned. Thank you. We're good, Terry. All right.
Thank you. We still.